This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Good morning, my Real News Media TV family. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you so much for tuning in this morning. And I trust that everyone will have a wonderful and a productive day. And in the news for this morning, December 14, 2022, 25-year-old teacher found dead at Clarendon home. The Clarendon police are investigating the death of a teacher whose body was found outside her home in Hartwell Gardens, Maypen in the parish on Monday night. The deceased has been identified as 25-year-old Vanessa Williams. Police reports are that Williams returned from work on Monday afternoon, but several calls to her phone went unanswered. Her body was later discovered on the ground in her yard about 10:49 p.m. The police say the circumstances surrounding Williams' death are unknown at this time, but investigations are ongoing. Chef gets a life for killing teen. A St. Andrew man who shot and killed a high school student who he was having a relationship with will have to spend over 20 years in prison for the crime. Amar Fairweather, 31, was sentenced to life in prison and ordered to serve 23 years in prison before he is eligible for parole. Fairweather, a chef, was also sentenced to 10 years in prison for illegal possession of firearm and 7 years for illegal possession of ammunition. The sentences were imposed by Justice Vinette Graham Allen in the Home Circuit Court yesterday. The charges stem from the shooting death of Jose Marte Technical High School student Denise Hume, 15, 4 days before Christmas in 2017. Fairweather pleaded guilty to the charges in October. Prosecutor Andrea Martin Swaby led evidence in court that Hume was killed after she sent Fairweather a text message ending their relationship. According to the evidence, Hume was at her Seaview Gardens St. Andrew home with her family members on December 21, preparing for Christmas. Fairweather entered the yard and was seen going inside a room with a pistol. Shortly after, a loud explosion was heard coming from the room. When relatives rushed into the room, the 15-year-old was seen on the ground with blood running from her head and Fairweather standing over her with a gun in his hand. Fairweather was asked why he killed her and responded, "I know me kill her, she a idiot, she kill herself." He was then asked if she was dead and he replied, "She must dead." The accused then retrieved a spent casing, put it in his pocket and fled the area. Exotic dancer acquitted of murder. An exotic dancer who was implicated in the stabbing death of a man in Portland in May was yesterday acquitted of murder. Kamoy McIntosh was freed in the Portland Parish Court after the judge upheld a no-case submission from her attorney John Jacobs. The woman was charged with the May 22 murder of Colin Colson, otherwise called the Gramazone, a 33-year-old mechanic of land settlement in Port Antonio. Colson was found lying on his back in a pool of blood in a hotel parking lot on Evely Park Road in Port Antonio with a stab wound to his chest. Following the incident, McIntosh was arrested and charged. She, however, gave a caution statement in which she explained that she went to rescue Colson's girlfriend, who was being attacked by him when he turned on her and started choking her. During the incident, McIntosh said the man pulled a knife and she tried to take it away and a tussle ensued. Sometime after, when they separated, McIntosh said Colson walked away with his girlfriend, and while he was walking away, she noticed the blood on his t-shirt. She said she shouted out, "Jesus, me never mean it." Her lawyer during the no-case submission maintained that Colson was killed in self-defense and that his client did not harbor any serious intent to kill or injure him, as there was no excessive force or multiple injuries. Jacobs further argued that Colson was the aggressor and that it was his knife that was used to inflict a single wound to his chest. Based on the statements that were being relied on in the matter, Jacobs further posited that there was no evidence to negate self-defense. Additionally, he said the Crown had not proven that his client had unlawfully killed the victim. The judge in the end accepted that the Crown had failed to establish a prima facie case of murder against McIntosh. Attorney at law Courtney Rowe also represented McIntosh. Police Commissioner hits back at Indicom report on police fatal shootings. Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson is pushing back at reports from the Independent Commission of Investigations about the number of fatal shootings involving members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. During its quarterly press briefing last week, Indicom reported that there were 130 fatal shootings involving members of the security forces up to December 8 this year. But General Anderson says Indicom is not painting the full picture of situations where the police use lethal force.
At no point in this discussion about fatal shootings have I heard one shooting being called justified. How is that possible? When you look at other jurisdictions, it's a simple thing. You investigate the matter, it's either going to be a justified shooting or it's unjustified. Simple. If it's unjustified, you charge. That's it. Isn't it interesting that in our context, far more dangerous context, far more people shot in the country, that I haven't heard our independent commission say that there was one justified shooting. The report is available to everyone. If you look at the back part of the report, you will see a long list of every matter that is investigated. When you go through that list, you'll probably find 200 cases in the back, of which one may have a recommendation for a charge. The last one we looked at, there were 253, I think it is, cases. 9 charges were recommended. Now, this is just a recommendation. This has not gone through the process yet. One related to a fatal shooting, and that fatal shooting took place in 2017. Isn't that curious? How that? It tells a different story, because largely for those who have intersected with Indicom, those investigators who are doing the investigations and stuff are above board. If you tell me now that the police shot 6 mentally ill persons who didn't have a firearm, and you leave that hanging there, it means one thing. If you say that the police officers in 6 cases that people were armed with weapons out of 1,200 cases that we responded to, it tells our public a different message. When you leave it like that, it is dishonest because it has no context. So I know in this very division, you have lost a member by virtue of somebody who was mentally ill with a stone. So who is speaking doesn't live the reality on the ground. They're just talking, and agendas are running, but we can't let that stand.
Malahoo Fort says the country misled on effect of SOE regulations. Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs Marlene Malahoo Fort has asserted that Jamaicans were misled last week by 2 senior members of the legal profession about when emergency regulations take effect. On December 6, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced the reimposition of states of public emergency in Clarendon, St. Catherine, St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, and the sections of Kingston and St. Andrew. The measure was also activated in St. Anne. In a statement during the sitting of the House of Representatives on Tuesday, Malahoo Fort said the validity of the regulations was brought into question over concerns about their effectiveness. The regulations were tabled in Parliament days after the declaration of the crackdown. The states of public emergency were consequently described as toothless, she said, referring to a news article citing constitutional experts Dr. Lloyd Barnett and Michael Hilton, King's Counsel. Malahoo Fort said the regulations do not require any affirmative or negative resolution to commence, as some other laws require, as the Emergency Powers Act provides for the making of these types of regulations by the executive. She added that the legislature has delegated that subsidiary lawmaking power to the executive arm of government. The requirement to table the regulations speaks to their duration, how long they last. The requirement does not deal with when they commence. The regulations were duly gazetted and published on December 6, 2022. They were subsequently laid in the Senate on December 9, 2022, and then the House on December 13, 2022. It is most unfortunate that the people of Jamaica have been misled on this very important matter, Malahoo Fort remarked. In response, St. Andrew Western Member of Parliament Anthony Hilton, an attorney and a lawmaker with parliamentary experience spanning nearly 3 decades, said it is a teachable moment for him. Until I saw and read this statement, I was not of that understanding either, and I believe that the fact that this statement had to be made in the context of what has been said by the eminent constitutional lawyer and others speaks to the fact that clarity is needed. I believe it may not end here because there are questions. There will be questions, he said. MP Hilton reasoned that regulations are subsidiary legislation and that in the main act of the law, it provides for the making of regulations. It is not my understanding previously that all that needs to happen is that it is gazetted and laid on the table unless the legislation is so specifically provides, he said. The St. Andrew Western MP added that it has been a practice, even in respect of the SOE matter, that the regulations have previously debated and discussed. Mala Huford said the comments made by the lawyers were premised on a misunderstanding. She explained that during the sitting in the House last week, a number of documents were circulated, including regulations. It is not the norm for the regulations to come from the printing office and be sent straight to the floor of Parliament without being checked for accuracy, among other things, to ensure that there was no printing error. When they were pulled back from circulation, I think there was some misunderstanding that they were tabled and pulled back. The misbelief was that there was no regulations at all because they were withdrawn, Mala Huford said. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.